Yes. All right.
Look at that professional job we got there.
Oh, that came out better than I thought it would.
I got to tell you, that was the most exciting thing I've done all week. That's really great. Wow,
I'm
man.
so excited. Oh, I'm so excited.
That is kind of exciting. It feels like we have a real show.
We do.
Wow.
It's very real. It's very real. It's very official. Stephen, you are not home.
I am not home. I am on a family vacay in Ocean City, New Jersey. So I'm not in New York, but it's nice to get out of the city because, as you know, the city is it's kind of rough at the moment. It's been real interesting. How are you? How's it been? It's been a week actually since I've seen you, I think.
Yeah, it has been. It's even more than a week. It's been a strange one. I got to be honest. I'm continually disappointed in certain very smart people and continually disappointed in myself that I continue to be disappointed, if that makes sense.
Why are you disappointed in yourself? Because you think you're not surprised that you're disappointed in these people, or?
Yes, well, that I'm still like, why am I upset again? Why am I upset that these people are saying dumb things? You know, it's a new thing that people like to do where you talk to them about something and you share something and they just dismiss what you have to say based on the web address that you're sending them, right? So there's no attention paid whatsoever to the author. There's no attention necessarily paid to how well sourced it is. There's no attention paid to any of that. It's like, well, that's that site, so forget it.
Yeah, there's really no conversation anymore. There's no dialogue.
No, because they just want to dismiss it outright.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to turn around soon. It'll be turning around.
I hope. But I wanted to start the show with something that's a lot more important than my quabbles with intellectually dishonest Facebook friends. And I came across a story of a friend of mine named Jessica Klein Folio. I thought used to her married name, even though she's been married for many years. She went with me to, she was a colleague of mine at Manhattan School of Music, just a wonderful person. And I came across a Facebook post of hers that I hope, I didn't want to have to show much of it, but just to give you an idea, this is Jessica not happy about what's going on. This is her son, Ben, who she's going to talk about. The brief version is that Ben has a disability and he is unable to wear a mask and on his flight. And she was treated pretty damn terribly. And I also received notes from certain people. I don't think she'll mind me telling her, but our friends of the show, David Lomelli, his wife, Sarah, wonderful singer, also mentioned that she was very happy that we were doing this. And I wanted to bring Jessica on to talk about this. She's a wonderful person, a wonderful singer, and she's also the COO of STAR. It's her own... she'll tell you about the organization, but Jessica, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hey, Jessica, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I didn't know that you were a man of this many talents.
I'm not. You are not deceived.
Wow. How long have you been doing this show?
Years. Yeah. I mean, we're syndicated now, so yeah.
I mean, we're big time, Jessica. But yeah. I was really moved by what had happened. I'm sitting here watching UFC with my Jessica. We're watching, and I just became a wreck. It's hard to see anyone, but especially such a dear friend, that distraught Can you tell us a bit about what happened, and tell us about your wonderful son, the Superman Ben?
Right. So at the beginning of your segment, you were talking about that New York City being not what we're used to it being right now. And so I decided to take a respite from it. And all of my family is in Chicago, but not like Chicago. It's like where the city meets the hillbillies, like that awesome, like half, it was great. So I went there for all of July and half of August. And I flew home on Saturday, and I didn't even think about it, but the flight attendants were not, they were staring at me. And I thought, why are they staring at me? I know I have a handicapped son. Is it that obvious? But then somebody from off of the flight came on, like a higher up, and said, I'm sorry, we can't take off until your son wears a mask. And I couldn't staple it to his face. I tried and he would tear it off. I tried and he was tear it off because he's mentally disabled. So he didn't understand it. And it was humiliating, and the flight was delayed. Everybody around us was asked, this boy can't wear a mask. Do you want them to move, or can you move? And every passenger said, just take off. Who cares? And Gideon, what you said, people are just dumb. And some of these rules, yes, they are meant to keep us safe. But on the same token, like, are you stupid that you can't like see what's in front of you, and that this rule can't apply. It seriously can't apply.
It's a really terrible story, because your situation isn't one where you chose not to do that. I mean, you were trying to follow by the rules. It was just the physical limits were impossible at that point. But I'm surprised that even like they let you get on the plane. They noticed your son obviously when you checked in. So
he had a wheelchair. He was in a wheelchair. It's no secret. He can't walk. Like,
it's unbelievable.
So I thought that we weren't, and also my husband was in the hospital. He called just as we were boarding. I'm going to the hospital. Sorry, you're going to have to Uber home with a handicapped child and all of your luggage. And I'm sorry, but he's okay. He had really high blood pressure.
Thank God.
He's okay now. He's home. But it was, but I didn't even tell the staff. I didn't tell them I have to get back to New York. I was just trying to put the stupid mask on him. But I've talked to various doctors since then, and they said that the more you struggle with a child, the more respiratory aerosols are, like, as they scream and cry, are let out anyway. So it's more detrimental in that regard than wearing the mask at all. So it was heartbreaking. I have worked so hard for Solid Treatment and Research. It's an organization that I run now, and we have funded hundreds of thousands of dollars to Montefiore Children's Hospital and the National Institutes of Health, and now Children's Hospital of California asked us if they could join us. So this foundation has just taken off like gangbusters. People like Gideon, Renee Tatum, Leah Crochetto, like they have all done various singing engagements, or they have really promoted us, and those are my friends from my singing days. Ta'opupua, they've done amazing in helping me advocate for this. So I really give it to you, Gideon, and everybody who's the arts have really come together for this rare disease, and I'm so thankful.
Are you in New York currently?
Yes, I am.
So after you got kicked, how did you get back?
They finally took off.
Oh, so they did eventually, after they made a big scene and
how long was the delay?
Ben also has they didn't ask for it, but Ben also has a New York State license. Like, it's a card that says, I have a mental disability. I don't, and it's a state issued card. It states what his disability is. And they never asked for it though. And I should have given it, because it says in the card, I don't mean to not comply. I just don't understand. But so I really am starting to advocate for children who have disabilities. They are valid disabilities. There's paperwork on it that airlines and people in general need to be cognizant that not all children can comply with the mask mandates. Some adults can't either. There's clearly there's special needs adults as well. So yes, I am back in New York. They delayed the flight by like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then I just said, he has rights. He's got rights too. And when I get back, I'm going to find out what rights he has.
but
the
there's plenty of
Facebook-
time to humiliate and upset. And
Oh,
I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about Sala. I'd never heard it till Ben. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about it.
So I always say it's when the fairest of them all have the rarest of them all. Total joke. But at the same time, it really truly was that rare. We were diagnosed, and it was a long diagnosis. And it's more people know about Tay-Sachs in the Ashkenazi Jewish community. And it's where the cells can't break down amino acids or cholesterols. I'm forgetting which one it is. But for Ben, for Sala disease, it stems from the Vikings, not the Ashkenazis, but the Vikings, and he can't break down sialic acids, and so it builds up in his lysosomes and his cells over time, and it's a poison after a while. So we were diagnosed with this, and we went to go research it, and there was nothing. Like when you say, "Can I find another family?" No. There was nothing. There was no research, no doctor who knew anything about it, nothing. So we decided to start a foundation for it, and now we have mouse colonies. We have hundreds of families from all over the world who have now contacted us. 10 this summer of new diagnosed patients have come forward because now science is catching up, and we are finally diagnosing it correctly. Wow. So, and in the divided world that we live in, it's supposed to be a Scandinavian disease. But we are finding Latinos with it, and African Americans with it, and actually today, an Indian child with it. So we are more connected in this world than we are different. And I wish that I've given a lot of speeches about how to embrace those how we're the same, how we're more alike than we are different. So anyway, it's been a journey. I went to Juilliard after Manhattan School of Music. I thought I was going to be an opera singer, but then I had a rare disease kid, and now I advocate for rare diseases. Mm-hmm. I work with doctors all around the world. Yeah. So that's my story, but it's gotten 10,000 views so far on just Facebook. I'm not a Twitter person. Yeah. So I'm hoping that more news outlets pick it up, because Southwest did this to a autistic child the day before. Wow. So
Did you find out that they just didn't? I mean, you said they seemed to be really rude, and obviously it's they made the situation 10 times worse. But as you were explaining your situation, were they understanding it all, or they just didn't want to hear it?
Wow. No, just sorry, he's got to wear a mask or we don't take off. And I was just like, sorry. And so it was becoming more and more clear, and they were all staring at me, and on the phone with the captain, on the phone with Southwest. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then I don't know who made the call, but then they went around to everybody around us, further humiliating us, saying, do you feel comfortable being around this boy? Because he can't wear a mask. So it's just like, and I was just waiting for someone to be like, yeah, I don't like it. So
no, it seems like that didn't happen. It seems like the passengers had more compassion than the actual people
totally.
Piloting the plane.
Totally. Passengers, let's take off. Like, what are you doing? Let's just go. Yeah. So but with all this mask, I wholeheartedly believe that we need to stop.
But was it a full flight?
No. The passengers had seats open in the back that they could go to, but nobody opted to move. They were like,
but what I mean is, were they socially distancing the flight anyway?
Yes, I do have to say, on Southwest Airlines, each row, the middle is open. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how social distance is that, though, honestly?
Yeah, right.
And then you cough and the person in front of you. It's asinine. These rules are just like, and then you can take off your mask to eat or drink. So I don't get it. I never will. I think I'm going to move out of the city. I'm going to be honest.
Jessica, how can people get involved with your organization? Where can they go to maybe donate or help you out and be a part of this?
Yeah. So, of course, during the coronavirus crisis, we have done so many virtual walks. We are unable to really fund or do charity events. So people could go to salaresearch.org, and they could read about all of our doctors and all the institutions that we represent. We have 3 different mouse models going, and at one of the institutions, we have a drug that is working on the mice. So, I mean, this is, I don't receive any money for this. It's all complete volunteer on my end. And all of the funds go straight to research. So solidresearch.org, Star Foundation, that is what I have started. Oh, thanks, Gideon. I see that.
You're welcome. Well, Jessica, we hope that the people involved learn from this, and we're very sorry that you had to go through it, but you continue to be an inspiration, continue to be super mom. We all talk about it, and we wish you all the best, Jessica. Thank you for your time.
And please, if you want to continue to come on the show and other episodes and still want to talk about the foundation.
No matter what stage you boys are on in life, it could be an opera stage. No matter what stage you find yourself on, just approach it with grace. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye.
Ooh,
crazy.
what a story,
oh,
huh?
Man, that's insane.
It's funny.
It's terrible because look, there are those assholes that go on and say, "Well, I have rights. I'm not going to wear a mask." But this is not that case. I mean, this is just it's unbelievable, and I can't believe. I understand that airline stewardess or stewards, whatever, they're just doing their job. But come on, I mean, at one point you have to just kind of make a call, and if everyone else around that's feeling safe, it's just a terrible situation. It's a terrible situation, which obviously means they need to do a lot more work in their research and figuring out what the proper protocols are going to be if airlines are going to be continuing service during this period.
Yep, and I hope other outlets pick this up. I mean, I'm grateful to Jessica. I'm glad that she got the message out there. But I hope other people, even though we have a nice audience, I'd hope an outlet with an even bigger audience can do this, so that to spare people that needless stress and humiliation. I mean, it's just acting like a decent person for a little bit more. But
absolutely. So yeah, we got
onto the show.
Onto the show. We've got a full show today, man. We even have should we bring them on now, or you want to wait a couple minutes? Are they ready? They want to come in?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, we got a full show. We've got.
Do you want to introduce them?
Yeah, we've got the with us Lauren Meeker, who's the general director of the San Antonio Opera, and our buddy Francisco Miliotto, who is the music director of San Antonio as well. And I really wanted to have them on. Why? Because they're really great people in the business, but they're also two people that have just taken over an opera company right before COVID hit. So
welcome to the show. Yeah,
they're getting the crash course of
a lifetime.
Yeah, right.
Course of a lifetime.
Right. How are you guys? Where are you both currently?
Go ahead.
I am in San Antonio, actually.
Oh, fantastic!
I'm in Chicago.
And you're and everyone's safe. Everything is okay and
all good.
Oh, fantastic! What I mean, you guys. Wow, I remember, Frank. I was talking to you about this when it happened. I was like, oh, this is a terrible thing to have to do. Your first few months, right? I mean, it was just announced that you guys were in those positions, and then what was it? Maybe just a couple months later, bang! It was. COVID and everyone was shutting down.
Yeah, our contracts, Francesco started in January, and by March, COVID was really, no pun intended, or absolutely pun intended, marching into the U.S., and it just changed things on a dime.
Yep.
Oh my God. So you obviously both had to not only start planning future seasons and start planning on the running of a company, but now you're having to reschedule and dismantle everything that you were planning on doing this season. What was that like?
I'll be the first to say insane. And, I think it's safe to speak for both of us that, we knew there were going to be certain challenges in your first year in new roles, period. But I think there's not a single company member in a leadership position that ever anticipated what guiding an opera company through a pandemic would feel like. So it's exactly as you say. It was, in those first couple of months, Francesco and I were quite excited to have, future seasons planned and getting ready to make big announcements and things that we were gearing Opera San Antonio towards doing for the first time in its 5-year history. And then all of a sudden, COVID changed all of that. It meant postponing shows and re-envisioning what the company could become in light of the pandemic and the health and safety issues, and crafting a new vision that's going to propel us into the future.
we were fortunate enough to have Ian Derrer on last week, and he was going through and talking to us about the future of what he feels the business is going to look like. Because there's a big difference between San Antonio and Dallas. It's a big, gigantic budget difference as well.
Enormous.
So how are you seeing the future for your company? What direction do you see it going in now?
I think there are going to be challenges that we have to face as COVID and the restrictions around it continue to evolve specific to San Antonio. But there are some things that I think universally are being looked at by companies that are forever changed. And just the scale of what you can or can't produce gets manipulated a little bit depending on your company size and structure and budget. Mm-hmm. In other words, suddenly we are all finding ourselves in a new digital era and providing content and programming that actually probably should have been there in the first place, right? So like say either one of you were to come and perform at Opera San Antonio. We weren't doing anything prior to COVID that were interview shows like this or ways of promoting online or using Facebook or social media really to the extent that it could be. That's not going away now that we've introduced those platforms. And in fact, I think if you take it farther, the amount of digital programming or the kind of content that companies are going to do is going to be a forever part of the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking to David about this as well, and just saying we've gotten, David was talking about TDO Network. And so, my main question to him was, so what does this mean going in the future? How is this going to be incorporated in what you do? Is it going to be a big part of it? Is it going to fall to the side? But it's really not. It's going to be something that opera companies like ours and every other opera company are going to be able to find the silver linings in everything that we're doing, find the benefits of, what they can benefit, not only financially, but of course, extending our reach to audiences all over the place. Now your audience doesn't have to be just sitting in San Antonio or sitting in the Tobin. Our audience can be literally anywhere in the world now, and we can connect with them and figure out what our personality is online, like what we're like, and then give people that kind of experience. And I just hope that it ends up being something that's really unique to San Antonio, because I said this to Lauren the other day in a text, while we're like, what's happening? What are we, and the question is the goal is to leave the opera company better than you got it, better than you found it. And I think things like this and finding a personality and all of that, we're going to do, that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's the right direction to take this stuff.
It's interesting you say that with all the social media, all this internet stuff, and how now you can broadcast to larger audiences. Do you now have to work with the other opera houses in Texas, for instance? Because Texas is one of the few states that have a few big companies. You have HGO, you have the Dallas Opera, you have you in San Antonio, you have Austin, Fort Worth, right? So now with all of the streaming and all this media and the things, you're now able to reach their audiences. Before it was so localized, you can do your own thing because you were the only shop in the area. Now it seems like. Do you now find yourselves in the future maybe planning with these companies to not step over boundaries, or how does that work out? Is that a thought?
Yeah, I actually think partnerships is the really positive word going forward. And so that's meaning things like even in the short term, we were talking about what we're putting up and what our educational programs are and how can we help promote each other. So actually, rather than it dividing the companies further because now there is so much more of a global audience, I think it's actually unifying us in some ways. But partnerships go beyond even, or communication goes beyond even just Texas opera companies. Even within San Antonio, it's forging new partnerships, new ways of communicating, and help actually spreading the word in a way that we really needed to as a young organization in San Antonio. So, for example, we put together a digital video series series called Explore Opera for Kids, and we partnered with the Opera Guild of San Antonio, and we partnered with the public library. And to date, that has been one of our most successful educational programs and has gotten us some of our largest exposure to younger audiences. That program was never meant to be digital before COVID happened. And now all of a sudden, this has given us a new opportunity. So I think what you're going to be seeing across the board, and I wouldn't even say partnerships is Texas specific. I mean, really, it's Opera America is connecting people company to company better than ever before. Intercompany conversations about how are you dealing with this, or how are you dealing with that, or how do we move forward? Because we're all in such new territory, I think that kind of communication will continue into the future and grow.
And how much does, I'm sorry, go ahead, Francis.
Oh, no, and also I just wanted to say, because of COVID and everything else, when we did this program, the Exploring Opera, we also ended up using 4 singers. So we actually end up putting together a young artist program specifically for those concerts of all local people. So that was another thing I think that helped bring, and something that we could pride ourselves on doing as part of that program. And that was
also our first time. Well. Yeah, we'd never had a young artist program before. So it was a surprising opportunity, again, that we never saw coming.
Absolutely. And it's a great way to connect to the city. And it's a source of pride for all of them. Everything there was from San Antonio.
Do you find that more companies now are going to start using more localized musicians, or maybe even like having these programs? Like I know Atlanta Opera had just started sort of like an in-house program with singers from the area to do performances and productions, I guess, while this is all going on. Do you find that most opera companies like yourselves are going to go in that direction? Maybe use more young artists for main stage things now? Or not?
I think
it depends. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think the answer is sort of yes, but it's also a timeline question. So, in the short term, while the majority of states are still dealing with pretty strict health and safety rules, and that's limiting the size of audience and things like that, then the answer is yes, going local. There are some advantages to if a company has the resources or the artists in their area where you can do that. Do I think that's a forever plan? Probably not, but does that definitely influence companies in the short term? And does that probably give some opportunities to a lot of great folks? Absolutely. But I think it's going to be a balance going forward of learning new things, finding new local artists, building from there. And then again, depending on resources, companies are going to decide, are they still bringing in artists from overseas, or are they staying national, or, and everybody will answer that question a little differently.
Yeah,
what are the... God, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, I mean, I think it's wonderful that we also will be able to pay or at least give more time and find all of the local people that you can. I mean, for us, because like you were talking about in Texas, we have people coming from Austin just to sing in our chorus. So for us, local can mean something a little different, and people are used to doing that, a little bit of traveling to do that. So, even if you're limited in your own town, I think it's important that we're going to be able to at least listen and try to actively find as many local people as we can that we can use. So, and I think that's also another source of pride that we can use.
What are the rules with performances now in Texas? Because I understand, the Dallas Symphony is going to open their season in certain concerts starting in September, I believe, I do understand that the Texas government has allowed performing arts organizations and cultural organizations to open up. What are the rules? Because you obviously run a Texas company, better than anybody else. So, and I know people are wondering, and I know some of our viewers are singers that are wondering what's going to happen in the future with their stuff. So maybe you can fill us in.
It literally, Stephen, varies city to city and day to day.
Yep.
So I can answer this with some truth right now, and it's going to change in a hot second, probably as soon as this interview is done.
Yep.
Like literally the rules and regulations we have here in San Antonio are not necessarily what's being faced in Austin, which is only, 2 hours away. So at the moment, we have 2 things that need to be considered. One is the weather. I'll get back to that in a second. And the other are health and safety rules. So there's certainly more strict rules on gathering size that still dominates decisions about when you want to do performances indoors and how you do those. Those audience sizes are still really pretty limited. Outdoors is a different question. There's more flexibility there for what can be produced, but it's 104 in Texas right now. So outdoors is really tricky to pull off and not just have your audience melt. So one of the things that Francesco and I have been talking about is we believe in our hearts, and yay for all of the digital programming. And I'm so excited because that's boundary pushing in so many ways, which we can talk about in a second. But we believe in our hearts that we really want to get back to live performance, whether that means concerts or local artists or full staged, as soon as the opportunity and regs allow us to. So we're looking at all of those different kinds we're looking at all of those different kinds of things to say, how fast can we get back outdoors? How fast can we get back indoors? How do we keep not only our artists safe, but also our community safe? And it literally ebbs and flows practically by the hour at this stage.
Yep.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, Texas, you're lucky in the instance of Texas that you don't always have cold weather. So you can even do more outdoor performances slightly later into the fall.
Correct.
Yeah, in November, sure.
Also, oh man, that's crazy. So in the meantime, how is it with your subscriber base? Are they jonesing to have performances? Are they not ready to come back? Have you felt them out to see where they are and how they foresee?
Opera San Antonio has never had a subscription series. And actually one of the things that Francesco and I were like hot to trot on going into this spring was announcing a full season and announcing subscription series.
There you go.
And COVID hit just as we were putting those plans into place. And so I worked with Francesco and the rest of our team, and I sat on the season announcement and I reassessed because I didn't want to put anything out into the ether that I was going to have to retract.
Exactly.
That's only because I didn't have something like a subscription system set up where patrons were waiting on tickets to be released. It had only ever been released on a per show basis. So that meant for me that, and this was my own personal stance, that I wanted the information when we did do a season announcement to be as accurate as possible and not something I was going to have to pull back on. So when we finally did do that, we promoted the digital opportunities that we have coming up. We mentioned that we want to do an outdoor concert, and we mentioned our spring performance, which we're hopeful to get back into play as soon as possible.
Right.
And actually what's been interested is watching our social media interactions crank up in a way that they never had, I think, in the last 4 years. So that's signaling to me that OSA, despite these really challenging circumstances, is reaching a broader audience. We are growing and making ourselves relevant and finding ways to connect with our community and heal souls so that when we can provide a ticketed opportunity, whether that's outdoors or indoors, we're going to actually have grown interest in that and grow our audience going forward.
And
what is it? Oh my God, we think alike, Frank,
God.
every time.
I just want to say, to people, not just to Lauren and Opera San Antonio and to all of the people making these decisions, it is so difficult with to guess the timing. You're just guessing. You don't know when things are going to come back. You don't know when it's going to be safe. You don't know what your state or your city or anything's going to do. You don't know how your audience is going to react when there are all questions and almost no answers. So not only to Lauren and the team at Opera San Antonio, but I mean, you do have to say, at least chapeau or something to everyone that is just sort of swimming in the murkiest. I don't want to swear or curse, but
you can.
The just worst water ever. And it's just it's just lights off and then please try to get through this maze. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and it's really just, that's a tricky thing. And, there's going to be people that get it right. And there's going to be people that get the timing wrong. And it's just going to be a rough wave of coming back in. It's not going to be a smooth thing, but to the decision makers in opera, chapeau from me, because just just being with this lady and trying to figure it out.
The other way.
Yeah,
I'm literally putting it right. Yeah.
If it's any consolation to you two, apparently Sanford here writes the same thing happened to David Walker at Palm Beach.
Yep.
So he was appointed 2 months before COVID too. But Sandy wishes you both and David much good luck in your quest for creativity and reaching your audiences. So you're not alone. A lot of people dealing with this apparently.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the most difficult things to do. And then, of course, with all the pushbacks, I mean, Stephen knows, I'm sure getting, I mean, all the contracts that get pushed. As soon as you say we're canceling an opera, that makes a mountain of snowballed stuff all the way down that needs to be answered for later. So,
and as soon as one does it, everyone else is like, oh, well, if they're doing it, maybe we should do it also.
Maybe we should do it too. I mean, as soon
instead of having creativity and trying to find a way to salvage things, it makes it harder. But I don't think people realize that your company is still a really young company. Yeah. I mean, because there was the San Antonio Opera, and that didn't really go well by the people that I think had it prior to that, right? But it's a different organization now.
We're only entering our 6th season now. Yeah. So, yes, there have been other iterations of other companies in San Antonio, but this one is quite young. And obviously, Francesco and I have only been involved since January. And what's interesting, to your point, Stephen, about coming up with creative solutions, there is part of this process, especially when COVID first hit, which I think was cancellations or postponements because so little was known. And because lockdowns happened so quickly, it really eliminated the ability for companies to pull any kind of live performance off until more was understood about the ramifications of COVID and singing and performing together, right? So now what I think is happening, and again, I have to be really clear to say every company's resources are different, every city's laws are different, so everybody's going to do this in a different way. But now that more information is coming in, more guidelines are coming in, then the leaders I'm talking to are working to find ways to be as creative as they can, given whatever their budgetary and health and safety restrictions are for their given scenario.
That's a good point. So as from a financial standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. When you were planning your season before this happened, how much X, Y, and Z are going to cost, and how much money you have to raise in order to be able to put those productions on and keep the company running. How has this situation affected your fundraising? Has it made it harder because you have to raise more money to accommodate all of the guidelines and now this whole new social media platform? Do you have to raise more money, or does it actually you don't have to raise nearly as much because you're not putting as much on the stage? How does that factor out?
I think the answer is still being discovered, but it's essentially yes to both of the options you presented. And here's why. Funding across the board, in some instances, really dropped at the beginning of COVID. So, there were some resources that we were hoping on having that Opera San Antonio had consistently in the past, and COVID actually changed some of that funding. And those changes, some foundations may be able to give less, or some foundations may no longer be giving. Some of those issues are impacting the kind of financial decisions that we'll be able to make going forward. But then there are other opportunities like money coming through CARES Act that are still in development, finding new sources of funding, and also trying to gauge where individual patrons are. So it's a bit of a rebalancing act as we sort of analyze, and we have to partner that in tandem with really educated guesses at where we are going to land in terms of either foundational or government or individual support, and balance that with a season we think we can pull off within that budgetary realm. So it's, and also I will say, sort of, that's not unusual. I mean, how a company like ours, which does not have an endowment, which lives, season to season on whatever those financials are, there's always a necessity to go out and reanalyze and figure out where the investments are coming from to make the art happen. COVID's just changed the game and made that challenging in new ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Oh, nothing, Frank. Oh, you have nothing to say now.
Nothing. I was the only thing. I'm waiting.
I wait for you. You have nothing to say all of a sudden.
The only
time.
Yeah, really, first time. No. I mean, the only, there's nothing to add. I mean, she said everything perfectly. I just did want to say, of course, you can say that doing something like not doing a full production, of course, it still doesn't mean, it means you're not spending whatever it is that you're putting into a full production. If you're going to do a concert or you're going to do, certain types of digital content. So in that sense, I just wanted to cover that part of your question, that at least there is some sense of saving when but pushing it back means you push it into another season. Right. So.
Yeah. Now, Lauren, you're a director, right? So when this happens, right, you now have this new platform, and you can either do concerts or you can do operas via this new web series. You can do shows, you can do things like that. What does your mind do? Does your mind go like crazy? Like, oh my God, I have all these ideas. I think I can really figure out how does that work? How does it work for you? Because you have the two hats. You have a director's hat, and you also run the company. So you can think of it and do it.
Yeah. So I think first my brain exploded because like I had said, we were so far down the path of planning for next year. And then the second wave was figuring out how to deal with cancellations and postponements. And in tandem with that, / the third wave, it was figuring out what the possibilities are. So both for the company and for myself as a director. So as I think you've probably seen last week, Houston Grand Opera announced their HBO digital series, and I've been engaged to direct 2 operas for that series, which we are filming specifically to be absorbed digitally, not like a film stage version, if that makes sense. Yeah. So suddenly opportunities are coming up where I think in general, you're going to find artists pushing the boundaries on what is opera, artists and companies, to be fair, pushing the boundaries on what is opera and what are those kinds of opportunities. But I think with Francesco, specific to OSA, we've talked about everything from like digital collaborations, concert work, online interviews. When do we get back to fully fledged live performance? What is it if it's not that? Are we outside? Are we inside? Can we do a radio broadcast? I mean, every idea that's out there, wherever I pick it up from, we play off of each other and try to decide, do we have the resources? Do we have the timeline? Is that something we can present? And that, Stephen and Gideon, I don't think that's ever going to change. I think this whole new world that we live in is going to keep folks like Francesco and I asking, what else could we be doing? How else could we be presenting artists? What haven't we tried yet? And it's going to really blow open the doors to new possibilities. Oh,
Stephen? Oh.
Please.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say also, I find it very interesting, and we've talked about this many times, Lauren and I. Also, it's going to end up being, what does it look like on stage? What do the numbers look like? How compact can you do it? How safe can you do it? I mean, I've had to go through every scenario possible, from like string quartet and piano, or just piano, or where can we put the chorus on our stage in our hall? Can we do this from here? Is it 6 people? Is it 12 people? Rigoletto's only men. So, I think that might also be something that gets impacted. Reorchestrations, even smaller orchestrations, more chamber sized things, just to cut down on the numbers and the costs as we start to grow back into, if that's something that a company might need to do, which is an option that someone like us would need to consider. Instead of having 48 people in a chorus for Elixir, we might only be able to have 24 or 18 or 16. And what does that do with the string numbers? So there's so many possibilities, and it's not something that's new. When all of these operas were premiered and played, every court, every opera house, everything was different. Every orchestration was probably a little bit different as well. So it's not that it would be a detriment to anything, but I think it's also something that people are going to need to think and consider, how they actually present it numbers wise. I think it's going to be something interesting to see.
Maybe it's time to bring back the old Bell Telephone Hour and just do do scenes of operas. Why not?
Why not?
But On-Site Opera just did a telephone opera.
They did.
They just had love letters or love songs that were the paid performance was being sung to over the phone. So Stephen, you're like every angle we can find right now. The movers and the shakers who are excited about the future of opera, they're going to try it until we figure out, what resonates within each of our communities.
I did a production last summer in Bregan's Festival, and they have the perfect setup for a socially distant opera. I mean, the orchestra plays in the theater, and it's piped through a sound system onto the lake, where all the singers are in the middle of the lake and completely far away from the audience members. And I think
because the stage is enormous.
But talking to you and talking to Ian, it sounds like all these ideas are great, but you all still wake up in the morning praying that a vaccine comes out.
Yes.
So
because really, Stephen, what I don't know how to do yet, whether it's a vaccine or it's rapid testing, is put two artists in a room together and have them hugging and touching and kissing and singing and spitting, like all right in each other's faces. There isn't enough that's known about COVID yet, or how to keep artists and staff members who need to be close to each other or to the artists safe. So there's, in the short term, it's like, how can we be creative when we don't know enough about how to keep people safe and yet still pull it off? And then there's going to be a series of new opportunities and new ways of approaching programming as those questions start to be answered.
Yeah, I think rapid testing for our industry will be a game changer for sure.
Yeah. Like the last thing I want to do, Stephen, even as a director, if I was directing you, the last thing that I want to do is go to the grocery store, pick up an apple, come back into rehearsal, have gotten COVID from, my outdoor grocery shopping experience and not realized it, and impact someone in rehearsal with me.
Absolutely. And I'm sure they're all things that you think about too, especially when we go back to work. It's like, okay, look, you can have lunch, but bring it. You have to stay in the room. You can't leave. Once you're tested, you're locked in.
Yeah.
And then
we got to be in an opera bubble. We need to be in opera bubbles like the NBA. That's what we need to be. We need to be in bubbles.
But that's what, if you want to know the bubble route, talk to like Leanne from Wolf Trap or Morgan. They've just really successfully pulled off the first step, I think, in starting to figure out how to do this.
Look, they've successfully done it. They've successfully done it in Europe so far. Madrid just did 27 performances of La Traviata. And no one in that process had caught COVID. Nobody was infected. Nobody got sick. And they did 27 performances, and they checked people regularly. They tested them, and they still went home at night. They didn't sleep in the theater. They went home.
Right. That's right. And they said, I think I was reading. We were talking about this, Stephen, before on a phone call. They reached something like it was over 20,000 audience members at some point, and no one has called to say that they caught it from being in the audience. So. Yeah,
they were very successful with it. Italy is, and it was during a spike, by the way. Yeah. And towards the end of that run, I believe that's when Spain started to really spike again. So, there's ways to figure it out. It's just that we have a different government, obviously, and they're not as understanding about the arts.
Well, but also, yeah, but every company's ability to do that, like I would love to do that, Stephen. And if it comes to, like socially distancing and spacing my cast on stage so they have the, required amount of space, but I don't own my theater and I can't put 27 performances in order to compensate for the lost revenue. I'm locked into the dates that I've got. So part of that end of the spectrum also dictates like how big or how much or how often. It's crazy how different every company's scenario is in order to start to answer the questions of how do we get people back to work.
It's funny you say that. We forget that. We forget that most companies don't own their theaters.
Exactly.
And they're shared.
I could say, oh, sure, I can keep everybody on stage safe. And I used to have a 1,200 seat house. Now I have a 20-person seat house. I can do 30 performances. Great. But that's the part where I get held up. I can't add the multiple performances.
Right.
A, because I may not have artists contracted, and B, because I don't have the space. So that's where I'm trying to look at that, not as why can't we do this? But as all right, what can we do? Even if it means like totally rearranging and rethinking projects in the short term.
Is there a capacity for the audience that you'd be able to persist as a company? I know Gelb came out and he said 40% of the Met, absolutely not. It's more worth it to me to just shut down for the season. For you guys personally, is there that sweet spot? Maybe if they allow 50%, maybe if they allow 40, whatever the case may be. Is there any spot that you could maybe make do with that?
Yes, and it depends on the show or what's conceived. So, in other words, if it's Francesco and one singer for one night for a 50% audience, that's much more feasible for me to pull off revenue-wise than, say, if I'm to do, I don't know, Aida with a full chorus that somehow I can magically space, right? So it sort of depends on like the scale of the production or whatever the performance aspect is as well.
All right. So basically Bluebeard's Castle and Don Pasquale.
Well, that I think speaks to what Francesco, what he's saying is you're likely to see a lot of programming shifts.
Yeah.
But now you're also entering another topic of planning and company territory, which is how much do you stick with what has been presented and how much do you evolve, and where's your mission statement or your vision statement? And, every company, again, will have to answer that for themselves. Do we only do grand opera? Do we only do digital? Do we do everything in between? And that is going to be an evolving conversation as every company continues to assess where it is.
And just to be clear, you're talking about Francesco on the piano and not singing, because you wouldn't get many subscribers if that were the case.
I'll leave that between you guys. You guys.
There it is. There's the one gig he gets. That's it. Only because it's your show, brother.
It was a good shot, though. You have to admit.
It was a good one. It was a good one. Yeah.
So before we move on to anything else, guys, is there anything that you would love to tell us and our audience about San Antonio that we have not covered?
It's amazing, and you should check out all of our digital opportunities.
Do you have a website for that?
I would usually say if you can fly to San Antonio, come check it out. Because, even as a Northeast Boston-based girl, I was always surprised at how much I liked San Antonio, even from the first day I got here. But stay tuned in the next couple of weeks because we have some really exciting announcements coming up for projects that we're working on. And like Francesco was saying, the very beginning of the interview, it's no longer just the audience here who's in San Antonio that can see what we're doing. We're now entering projects that can reach across a global audience, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. San Antonio is a great city. I did one concert there in my life, and I had the most fun. It was really, really a great place.
Cool.
Should we play?
There is gorgeous, the Riverwalk is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of great food.
Great food, yeah,
and really good margaritas. So come when you can.
And it's all open.
Right.
And it's all open. All right. Shall we move on, Stephen?
Yeah. Can you guys hang? Want to play our game with us?
Yeah, of course I do. That's all I've been telling Lauren about. We've got to play with Lauren. I need to see some of her answers.
Oh, gosh.
Wait.
That's all you've been telling Lauren about? I mean, does that mean she does all the work for San Antonio? Is that what you're saying?
One of the things that coming on the show is great about is this. I love it.
The question is, do we give a shit? In which we talk about stories and discuss whether or not we actually give a shit. I think this one's a fun one. For the first one, we are despairing, we're upset, but don't worry. We have a hero. That's right. And you got to hand it to the guy. This guy is putting his money where his mouth is. And that's right. Andrew Lloyd Webber has volunteered to be a COVID vaccine participant, whatever I guess it would be called. He's determined to open up theaters in England. So what do we think of Andrew Lloyd? Superstar. That's my audition for you guys, by the way. What do we think about Andrew Lloyd Webber being a superstar, putting his money where his mouth is, and making it happen?
Go, Lauren.
Lauren, do you give a shit?
I'm only speaking specific to getting theaters back open. I say go, Andrew Lloyd Webber, go. That is not a comment on music stylings. That's a whole other question. But somebody's got to do it, and somebody's got to figure out how to do it safely and healthily. So if that's him, I say go forth and be merry.
I don't give a shit about that guy. It's fine. I don't give a shit if he's in a theater or not in a theater, or I just don't care.
But you don't think that's admirable at all that he gives,
No,
I think it's extremely admirable. I think it's amazing he's doing it. But I'll tell you what, it's great. He's taking the lead. He's doing it. He wants to get the theaters open, but he's also doing it safe because he has like gazillions of dollars.
There you go.
And so if it backfires, he can afford to get corrective
I think
treatments.
Francesco is just jealous about that last part, Steve.
Yes.
Oh.
I honestly think he's jealous of the hair.
Oh my God. That's
going down. Next question.
Oh my God. Why do I even bother? Damn it.
Okay. Well, we do have some more good news. We were talking about the new test, right? So this is actually promising. FDA has given emergency approval to the game changer saliva test, right? So instead of having to shove that thing, I don't know if you guys have ever had this, it was not pleasant. It's the same essentially as a flu test. My mother famously said to me last week, I hope she doesn't get mad when I say this on the air. She said, well, I asked Mom, how was your COVID test? Which was thankfully negative. She says, nothing worse than what the OBGYN has put me through, was what she said. But now they have a saliva test. So this makes it faster, it makes it easier, and it's also helping the backlog of the tons of tests. Francesco, do you give a shit?
This of course I give a shit about. Yes, of course. Anything to do this faster and better. And if it's the same reliability as the other test, and probably even better. I mean, this is... For me, this absolutely way more than Andrew Lloyd Webber, 100%.
Lauren.
Yes, I say 100% yes. If it's less painful and it gets results faster, that's what we need. Let's go for it.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. Stephen.
I don't give a shit. You know, I'm a singer. I've had cameras shoved up my nose, down my throat. You know, all these people that complain about a swab in your nose. And I'm like, shut up and deal with it. You know, it's just kind of like I honestly don't give a shit. You know what?
Wow.
You want to put it in your mouth? Put it in your mouth. Who cares?
Okay, well,
Steve, if they get the results faster, do you care about that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I thought we were talking just about the new way of testing. Yeah. If you get results faster, I give a shit. But
there you go.
How they do it, I really don't
give. Okay.
Okay. Well, I think I got a story that we can all say we do give a shit, and that is Berlin's leading epidemiologist clinic says that operas can go on with full performances provided that everyone is wearing a mask. They feel very strongly that a mask, he uses the figure 95% effective as far as blocking any droplets or any, not droplets, viral load was the term that he used. So that's 95% per mask. So you sitting next to somebody with a mask, that ain't happening. Lauren, what do you think of this?
Okay, can you forward me that article? Because now
I sure can.
Because I have questions. I definitely give a shit. That's the short answer. But my questions are: do they mean like safe just for audience and performers have to wear a mask? Because that's where I get into
about the audience. They're talking specifically about the audience.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, but I think it's easier to mitigate with a cast, right? Especially a smaller production than 1,000, 2,000 seats.
Well, that's where my question was. Like, does the article say I can put 6 feet or 6 people on stage with appropriate space between them, and them not being masked will not have a negative effect on the audience? Or
yes, that's from what I understood.
Okay.
But in particular to protect the audience, that seems to be the greater risk. Like I said, it's easier to mitigate, right, with the smaller. Francesco,
I would love that. They can make that true by our spring here in San Antonio. I would love every inch of that.
Exactly. No, I absolutely give a shit. I think that this is great. Yeah, absolutely. I really do care about this. I read the article this morning as well. So
yes, and I will send it to you, Lauren. By the way, my mother has responded and underscored the point to say, not even close, as in how much worse the visit is than the
there
COVID.
You go.
So we think he's alive here. No, I'm not getting grounded. Come on, it was a good joke. I think it's fine. All right, let's move on to the next one. See if I can find something here. Sorry, I was too taken by my mother actually commenting. She complained she couldn't see the comments last time, so I'm very excited. Oh, this is a fun one. All right, so because of the ever-changing rules with respect to quarantine. When you come home from wherever, you have to hide out for 2 weeks and blah. Right. Well, it creates log jams in certain situations. Well, these musicians who were originally going between France and England came up with their own way to beat the quarantine. And that is right. They just hired their own freaking boat.
I love it.
Back and forth between England and Spain. And there's the picture of them all gathered on a fishing boat that they decided to hire. It's a 5-hour trip apparently. And here, I don't know if you can see, here's the picture of their performance at, let's say, Abbey before their trip home. Mm-hmm. But this is how they skirted all of the quarantine restrictions and all the quarantine of, or rather the backup because of the quarantine restrictions that made traveling so hard. I love this story. I don't know about you.
I love it. I think it's great. Genius. I would do the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I give a shit because they're creative, but I don't give a shit about the first picture because they only put those masks on just for that picture.
Just for that picture.
You know,
there you go.
Proving a point, and it bothers the fuck out of me.
I got it.
Oof. That's a rough one.
Wow. Yeah. See, okay. You know why I did that? Because they were like, we're going to get the masks on so we don't get shit. I'm giving them shit for wearing them now.
There you go.
So I think all right, hold on. I got to get to the next one. Talk amongst yourselves. Let me. I already did that one. Oh, this is a good one. And I don't think we're allowed to say we don't give a shit. So my father is a classical guitarist. That's part of what led me into the career of music, though he's not a classical musician by trade. The great guitarist Julian Bream passed away, 87 years old. This guy, oh man, if you can, I actually have a clip of him if we want to see. He is what an amazing classical guitarist. We've lost a few people during this time, a few pianists, a few conductors. We have lost a few people during this time. So I just wanted to honor him. He's an incredible guitarist, classical guitarist, and a lute player as well. So Julian Bream, rest in peace. We wish you all the best. Julian Bream. What do we think of classical guitar and its future? Do we not think anything of it, Stephen? You scrunch your face a little bit.
No. I respect musicians a great deal, especially a guitarist. It's very hard. I couldn't do it. Yeah. Although when you mentioned the lute.
I lost you on the loop.
I don't know. I had pictures of him. For some reason, I had a picture of him in like tights and like some Shakespearean outfit, hopping around park benches, playing the lute to people. I don't know why.
Stephen, like he's in an opera. Like
exactly like he's in
that one out there.
Oh boy!
Exactly.
Wow, boy.
Okay. Although I have to say, I don't mind wearing the tights personally. But,
okay, well, here's another one for us. Are we ready? And that's right. The Pentagon has formed a new UFO task force. So,
come on.
I am ready with my tinfoil hat. We are back. Pentagon, UFOs, Francesco.
Am I allowed to give the finger on this show?
Yes,
absolutely.
I'm not doing it.
You don't think that's kind of cool that they're actually formalizing this?
No.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren, what do you think?
Shit, because if there's UFOs here and they want to beam me up to a planet that doesn't have COVID right now, I'm all for it.
Fine.
For it.
I think they're coming out with it because we're losing so much money right now. They're eventually going to turn Area 51 into like the new Disney World.
Right.
So they're going to start selling tickets. They're going to have tour buses. Everything.
They're just setting it up. They're just setting it up. That's all.
I'm excited. I'm excited. How crazy would it be if there were UFOs? They came down. They knew about it, yet they could never find the way to get to Mars.
Well. That would be something. But as usual, I like to end on a very positive note. And this is not a conspiracy. This is just the triumph, in my opinion, of the human spirit. And that is right. 107-year-old New Jersey woman who beat the Spanish flu also beats COVID. How awesome is this story? I love it.
Absolutely
I
great.
love that. Can I have some of her DNA, please?
Yeah,
Right.
maybe she's the vaccine.
Maybe
Maybe.
she is the vaccine.
She's walking herd immunity.
Yes.
Yeah,
Can we just like
107
put her
years old.
in like a Pope mobile with like fans and just like move
Right.
her from country to
Get
country?
her to breathe on everybody. It's
Get
fine.
her to
right.
breathe on everybody. Yeah. Just
All right.
have her wave.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Save us all.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you all for coming on. I encourage everyone to go to Opera San Antonio. It's operasa.org. We should thank, of course, we thank Jessica Klein for for sharing her story and speaking on behalf of so many people who can't deal with this the way non-handicapped people can, and so we appreciate that. Stephen, you want to sound us out? Thank our guests.
Yeah, guys, thanks for coming on. Good to see you both. Good luck with your journey in this COVID world of opera. And please, everybody, keep paying attention to San Antonio Opera. Check out their new stuff. And when do you think we'll hear some of that new news that you're working on that you said you'll be announcing soon?
Give me a week to 2 weeks.
All right, we'll hold you to it.
Right.
Impressive.
And we'll announce it. And we'll announce it here.
We'll announce it right here on the show.
Great. We'll send you all
Let's
the
do
stuff.
All right, great guys. Remember, join in next week for our same time, same show,
That's
same
right.
two assholes, and we'll hope to see you soon. All right, guys.
Thanks,
Have a good
man. Take